Hello. Yeah, I did say that we were gonna do some strange things on this channel. You saw the title. You probably know what this is about, and you're probably quite confused. Basically, we're gonna be reading my Beatles / fanfiction. I have not reread or looked back on this fanfiction for a very long time, so this is going to be an experience for me. Now let's address the elephant in the room. This wig and these ill-fitting clothes. For some reason, to me, it was very important that I dressed up like a Beatle for this video. This wig that is giving you like to pull She's the Man, Party City Beatles wig vibes is an Arta wig. It is good quality, but for this particular event, it does very much look problematic. And these clothes are all my boyfriend. I'm having regrets. Though, watch this. Sgt. Pepper tea. Sgt. Pepper jumped out. I am John Lennon. I will dig up John Lennon and kill him again. What? Like what? I'm literally, oh my god, everybody in some way like enjoys like a Beatles song or two, or they know who the Beatles are, but people don't make like the grand mistake that I made of standing the Beatles, but somehow I fell into this. I used to be really into, why did I go out of frame? I really used to be into Warrior Cats. And one of my Warrior Cats friends shared a song, and I was like, wow, this is really good. Who did it? And they're like, the Beatles. And I'm like, I don't really know who that is. And they were like, and then it just like went on from there. I became obsessed. I read huge biographies about them. I watched all the Beatles movies. I blogged about them. And like, to keep in mind, I was 11 years old at this time, and I spent about like 3 or 4 years of my life like obsessing over the Beatles and associated classic rock bands from the 60s and 70s who are all dead and very old now. Like, there was a huge community of like teenagers who were doing this, who were obsessing over these old men. And I know that, like, if any of the people from then are like watching this, hello, I'm so sorry. I did make a post recently that was like, all people who are the classic rock fandom in the past were like connected by blood magic forever. And it is so true. We are all cursed. But it is also interesting because I feel like the people from the internet that I still have connections, social media connections in some way to like most of the people that I knew back then, and it is crazy. I don't know where I got to the point of Beatles / live journal. My first like sort of like dipping my toes into slash was with Kakashi Iruka from Naruto when I was like 10 or something. I don't know, like when I was thinking about the Beatles and I was like, huh, like I want this, but my I want the thing that I have with the anime, but I want it for like the Beatles. I don't know where I came to that conclusion. I don't know how I got there. But at some point I went to this live journal community called the Beatles / live journal community. And there are tons of people who are making all kinds of slash. John Paul was the biggest one. George Ringo's kind of like pair the spare sort of shit. Some people are kind of into the whole like John George, Paul George thing. I was never into it. I'm a man of taste. But disgusting! I did in fact write a fanfiction, and the thing is that most of the people on this live journal were like grown, like they were grown-ass adults, and of course I didn't want to be like the kid one, and I never made it known like how old I was or anything like that. But honestly, why was I there? Like what business did I have reading about like John and Paul like smashing each other, written by some like 30-year-old in Colorado or something? Like, I know that I'm talking about it in sort of like kind of derogatory way, and I do feel like my obsession with the 1960s like gave me some like good insight on the past. Definitely it inspires my fashion and other shit nowadays. At the time, it was one of those like only old music is good, pop music is so vapid shit. But over time, I feel like it kind of like widened my horizon to enjoying like all kinds of music and enjoying all kinds of like fashion and culture from every single decade and every single country. But also, classic rock fandom was kind of a bunch of garbage, and is a good part of my trauma that comes from the internet, so that is just great. Let's just get into the fanfiction. This fanfiction in particular that I wrote was a wingfic. It was a wingfic, which means they all had wings. It was very, 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 very heavily based off of the book series Maximum Ride. I don't know why I pretended, like I don't think I made it clear at any point that it was based off of Maximum Ride. I'm not sure if all wingfic is based off of Max Ride, but it very much was. It was basically just a Max Ride AU. Now for people who are not familiar with the Beatles, I'll just give you like the fastest rundown possible. So first of all, there's John Lennon. He plays guitar, he writes the songs with Paul, we'll get to in a second. He is dead now. He's the one in that meme that's like goes around like, John Lennon deserved to die for walking like this, and he's like walking very strangely. He used to be my favorite. Huge mistake. Next is Paul. He is the bassist. He wrote most of the songs with John. If I had to choose a favorite Beatle now, it'd probably be Paul. Next is George. He is a second guitarist. Got really into spirituality stuff later in his life. He's cool. He was the youngest, and he's also dead. And then there's Ringo, the drummer. Like, why did anybody think Ringo was attractive? Because listen, I can't get over like this, the absolute ridiculousness of what I look like in this wig. I look like in those vines where it's like the white guy who's like your friend who's like kind of like unhinged. You know, all for the aesthetic, you know, the narrative of this. I'm not wearing my glasses, so this is gonna be pretty close to my face. Chapter 1. Beatles of the avian variety. Here's my summary. Hi, I'm kind of new here. Well, not new. I've been lurking around here and not commenting for a while. I guess I was kind of scared. Lol. Anyway, I just started this fic. Read, please? I hope I posted this right. The summary. When John brings home a bird to eat, some things go strangely wrong. Paul was sitting on the sofa, puffing away at a cigarette with Ringo and George while they watched television. John hadn't come back from whatever he had gone out to do. Paul cringed at the horror movie. It was so cheesy. What a load of bloody trash, he thought aloud, turning to Ringo and George. Have you ever seen something so ridiculous? He looked over at Ringo, who was clutching George's jacket, blue eyes wide, obviously scared out of his mind. Paul rolled his eyes. Just then, the door clicked and swung open, revealing a rain-soaked John who was clutching a small bundle in his arms. He walked over to them, dripping water all over the carpet. Where have you been? George asked, looking up. Went for a walk, John said, sitting down on the sofa next to Paul, ignoring the fact that he was wetting everything. Ugh, classic John. What's that there? Paul asked, looking at the bundle John was carrying. Food, John said, unwrapping it. It's a bird. A bird? Like chicken? I don't know. Where did you get it? John turned away and mumbled something. What was that, John? I got it from some bloke on the street. God. This just takes me back to like how I used to pepper fucking little British words, like Liverpudlian words / Scouse words specifically into my like vocabulary because I was such a big Beatles fan. Like it's like the Beatles version of like those like anime fans, those 12-year-old anime fans who like pepper like random Japanese words like Watashi want lunch or some shit like that. Paul backed away from the bird thing. I tried some of it myself, Polly. I don't know. I don't think we should eat it. Screw it, I'm hungry, John said. After a moment of hesitation, George and Ringo got off the sofa and joined him in eating the bird. Paul watched them eat, half expecting them to fall down dead in a matter of seconds. What really gets me about this is just that when middle schoolers write fanfiction about like adults, and I'm like basically insinuating here that like a bunch of like grown ass men are going to like eat like a dead bird off the street essentially. But also like as an adult now, I'm also like, I know this would happen. Like, of course a bunch of grown men are going to eat a dead bird off the street. But basically it's just more than like talking about and how like everybody ends up like eating some of it, including Paul, as curiosity gets the better of him. What is this? The McLennan is already happening. Paul was tired too, but he couldn't get the strange word out of his head. John got in bed with him and hugged him close. It was only then that Paul could go to sleep.
We need to launch a full federal investigation into why and how this happened. Who allowed this?
The next morning, Paul woke up sore. He felt like he'd been sleeping on something. He looked over at John, who was sound asleep with his arms still around him. He gently pulled John's arms away and got up to take a shower. Paul got into the bathroom and closed the door. With unexplained difficulty, he pulled off his shirt. He looked up at the mirror and screamed at what he saw. End of chapter. Ugh, the cliffhangers. I forgot how much I use cliffhangers in all of my fucking fanfiction. I wanted to keep people like hooked, and to be honest, I was good at it. I had people hooked. They were always like, I can't wait for the next chapter. And I was like, oh bitch, you're not even ready. I've got like all this like typed up in my WordPad document on my Windows XP computer. You don't know. What are the comments like on this? Ugh! Somebody says, why am I aroused? There was nothing... People are always like this on this live journal. There was nothing sexual about this chapter of fanfiction. One of the people here... This is so... Everything comes full circle. One of the people here who commented on it has an Eric Lyncher icon. Oh my god. I'm in hell. I guess I'm just gonna read part 2. I actually don't know how much of this I'm going to read. There are 16 chapters. I did finish the fanfiction. I guess I'm just gonna continue reading until I don't want to anymore. Chapter 2. John had been awoken by Paul getting out of bed. He heard the door click shut and turned over yawning. But Paul was an early bird, then John was the exact opposite. He buried his face in his pillow, trying to fall back to sleep. He felt strangely uncomfortable, but ignored it. That's when he heard someone scream. Paul? John tumbled out of bed and fell on his face. Paul's shriek was still ringing in his ears as he scrambled up and headed for the bathroom. Paul? I can't. Just saying these like names is like traumatic. Paul seemed to have sprouted a pair of pure white wings. They were soft and fluffy and brushed against John's face softly. John stared at him with his mouth open. With his gorgeous eyes, round cheeks, and innocent look, he almost looked like an angel, a real saint. John, Paul said, looking in the mirror, eyes wide with fear. Well, where did these come from? I don't know, Paul. Wow. You look kind of like an angel, if you know what I mean, John said, still soaking in Paul's strange aura. Maybe we should go wake up George and Ringo before you start becoming my own personal narcissist, Paul said, smiling. Who wrote this? Like, George and Ringo were fast asleep, having stayed up late together. Ringo, unable to sleep due to a scary movie, had stayed up and talked to George the entire night. See, this is the thing, George. They used to make George and Ringo's like out to be these like very like childish men for some reason. I don't know. They were like all soft and sweet, and it's just like, I'm not really sure where that came from. I think it was just trying to put people into tropes to make them easier to write in fan fiction, but this is basically just like some stupid thing where like Paul and George and Ringo are just like, who are you and what did you do with Paul? And Paul's like, Ringo finds out that he has wings. and John and George also see they have wings. Oh my god, John's wings are dark red. Look, John, Paul joked, grinning. I'm the angel and you're the devil. I can be your angel or your devil, Paul McCartney. We have to tell someone about this, George said. Brian won't be here for a while though, Paul mused. What should we do? John, what are you doing? I forgot to mention that Brian is in this and he's their manager. The thing is that with these kinds of like fics is that they're different from other random fics because the Beatles were like, you know, old and dead and stuff, so there's like a wealth of information about their personal lives and a wealth of information about like everything to do with what they were doing. So people would like put in their manager, Brian, and like their roadies. You know that birds fly, right? Well, maybe, just maybe. He ventured over to the open window. John, Paul said, eyes wide. John, what are you doing? I'm gonna fly, Paul, he answered, one barefoot on the windowsill. John, don't do it. But John had already jumped. Again with these disgusting cliffhangers. Like, so far this is like very tame. This is like very like kind of like little sandbox sort of like wing fic wish fulfillment for 11-year-old me. The opening of chapter 3 is so dramatic, I really thought I was William Shakespeare. Wind speeding by, cool air whipping his face, no breathing, no boundaries, no rules, just falling, free falling. Oh my god, this makes me sick. John gets back up from his unnecessary like experiment and says, and just like comes back into the hotel room. John, we thought you went splatooey on the sidewalk, Paul said, looking at him with those sparkly eyes. Sparkle, sparkle, John thought. Maybe we should stay inside, George suggested, you know, just to be safe. Aw, Ryu complained.
I wanna fly too.
And then they like just decide to just, I guess, jump out the window and leave a note being like, out for a fly, which I'm sure makes total sense and Brian would definitely understand. He looked out the open window. He knew John liked to snuff sometimes, but did it really go so far that he jumped out the window? What is snuff? Like, I want to know what I thought that snuff was then. Because as far as I know, I don't think that in this, where this is set, it's probably 1964-65, as that was my favorite Beatles era. I don't think John Lennon snorted cocaine at that point in his life. So like what is stuff? 4 mop-topped boys crashed through the open window, feathers everywhere. Paul lay on top of John, who was on top of Ringo, who was on top of George. That's my favorite part of the Bible. This is so stupid. I feel like a lot of this could have been compressed into like perhaps 1 or 2 chapters. Brian almost didn't believe their story. It was only the clear evidence that made him believe. I don't believe it. I just don't, Brian said, looking at the Beatles. This is a big, big problem. No, it's not, Paul said. It's a good thing. If some bird come mobbing us, we can just fly away. With a bunch of fans watching you, it'll be all over the newspapers, television, media, mobbing you everywhere you go. At concerts, in cars, in the bathroom, you name it. Brian is the only character here with like any kind of sense, it seems. We have to get someone to get these wings off you, Brian said, turning away and running his fingers through his hair. No, Paul yelled, folding his wings tight in protest. I like them. Paul, you've had them for like 20 minutes. Anyway, all of the Beatles refused to get them like taken away, and Brian's like, this could be bad for your health, and they're all like, well, we haven't felt that yet. So Brian like opens up a phone book to try and find somebody. Okay. So he finds a science physician place and he makes an appointment. Paul murmured, eyelids drooping. I feel like something bad's gonna happen tomorrow, John said. Paul leaned forward and kissed him. "Nothing bad's gonna happen, John." John scrunched up his nose. "That's what I said about the bird we ate," he was about to say, but Paul had already fallen back asleep, snuggled up into his chest. Oh. Wow, oh my god, hashtag feminism. Woman, crazy people, George commented. "I can hear you know," said the driver, who was a woman herself. "If women are so crazy, how come I haven't crashed into a building yet? I wonder." Ringo, John, and Paul started sniggering as George's cheeks turned bright red. George shook. George canceled. "Here we are," the wispy-haired old man said. "Dr. Madwell, your patients are here." John didn't like the way he said patients. Oh god, it's going sour. Dr. Madwell had bright ginger hair that hung half-shrivelly all over his face. He had bright green eyes with dark circles under them and what seems like thousands of freckles. He didn't look very appealing anyway. Wow, I'm... 11-year-old me is apparently very ginger-phobic. Brian piped up. "I'm their manager. Should I wait outside?" That would be good, thanks." John felt scared. He didn't want Brian to leave, but he was already gone. Oh no. Poor John. "So, Doc," Ringo said, "what do we need to do?" "Oh right, I need to take some blood samples." John didn't like the glint in his green eyes. Oh god, this is so... John decided to stay at the back of the line. George was just getting his blood sampled when John noticed something peculiar. He was putting something in George, not taking something out. Oh my god. John's eyes flitted over to his bandmates. They're looking quite dozy and leaning against a desk, obviously not realizing what was going on around them. "You're drugging them!" John turned to run, to get help, to get the fuck out of there, but found the door blocked by two large men. "Fuck!" John spat, turning around and seeing Dr. Mad Scientist coming after him. He tried to push past the two men, but they caught him and twisted his arms behind his back. He let out a yowl of pain, and then Dr. Mad Scientist grabbed him, pushed up his sleeve, and got the shot in. John struggled and kicked, yelling for help, but quickly he tired, feeling his body sinking into oblivion. His eyes started to droop, and things started to get dark. The last thing he heard was the doctor's maniacal laughter. Wow. This is crazy. This is actually getting kind of good. I'm actually a little bit intrigued with my own writing. My author's notes. Author's notes. George, Ringo in this one. Fun, fun. For those who want to know, George's wings are black and Ringo's are golden with white ends. Too lazy to spell check. Sorry for any mistakes. Okay. His eyes slowly opened. He could see nothing. Nothing but blackness. He tried to raise his head, and was immediately pounded by a rushing pain in his head, an ache all over his body. He let out a loud whimper and curled up into a ball, hugging his head. George? Ringo. George resisted the urge to double over and throw up as he sat up, looking in the direction of the voice. Ringo, is that you? Yeah. You okay? Just ducky, George lied, holding his head. What happened? Where are we? All I remember is that bloke taking a blood sample and John yelling something. He reached out and his hand met cold metal. He eventually figured out he was in a cage, a bird-style cage, and Ringo must be in one too. Where's John and Paul? I don't know, Ringo answered, the fear evident in his voice. I just don't know. He sniffled, and George reached past the bars. He was close enough to touch Ringo's hand, which was hanging out between the bars. Shh, don't worry, we'll be okay, George said, clasping Ringo's fingers in his. George didn't know this for sure, but if lying would make Ringo feel better, that's what he'd do. Oh my god. It seemed like ages they were sitting in their cold cages in utter blackness with only each other's voices for comfort when the door suddenly opened and light spilled into the room. Ow, jeez, George muttered, shielding his eyes. He looked up and saw the man he'd seen before passing out, Dr. Madwell. You, George snarled. Yes, me, the man answered. Madwell science labs create foods that enhance the body. They actually cause side effects like the one we round them up and study them. Usually we have to go look, but you walked right into our hands. Thank your lucky stars that you turned out okay. The failures are killed, and we try again. Nobody ever leaves, Ringo gulped. Nope. But, John said eyes wide, he could come up with only one thing to say. God. But we're the fucking Beatles! I'm aware of that, Dr. Madwell said. Oh my god. Drag them into cages. They're just like thrown into what I think is like supposed to be solitary confinement. For a couple hours at a time, we'll let you out here to observe you. It's important to know exercise habits, things like that. He noticed John scanning the walls and the horizon beyond. Don't even think of trying to escape by air. You got expert snipers up in the towers to shoot down anyone who tries to run. They all looked over and gasped. It was what looked like a giant furry cat with a human-like face who was harassing a couple of other hybrids. It was wearing ripped jeans and had muscly arms. It flexed the thick, sharp claws that protruded from its paws. This isn't just a furry. Like, this is like somebody's persona. Possibly my persona. It's not my persona. But this is like just another like sign that this is literally a Maximum Ride ripoff. Like, this is literally like the wolf people from Maximum Ride. Ringo wanted to yell, but he knew nobody would come to his aid. He felt the whatchamacallit clamp over his mouth and nose, and he slowly breathed in the anesthesia. His eyes drooped against his commands, and he drifted into a dreamless sleep. I'm not sure if that's how anesthesia works. Well, so I think there's a deleted comment here, but I can still see my reply, and I say, I've read Maximum Ride some. I think that might have influenced me about the Winx thing. We'll try to make them less alike, though. You lying bitch. You lying whore. This is a Maximum Ride ripoff. You read that entire series, you dumb bitch. So they marched away to their cell. They lay shivering in their dark cell, huddled up next to each other for warmth. It was so burning hot outside, but so freezing cold inside the cell. It was so freezing cold inside the cell. Paul groaned, feeling the crap they'd eaten trying to come up again. I don't know what exactly... I mean, I feel like lots of people who write fanfiction about anything have this like fascination with putting these people or these characters into like these horrible situations, but I like kind of like fascination that I had with like writing the Beatles in this kind of like experimented upon like kind of like horrific thriller story is something. She is mad. She's mad at me for reading this fanfic. John was absolutely scared out of his mind. How could he get sick now? What if those crazy scientists found out? What if they took him away? What if they killed him? John slapped himself. Get yourself together, idiot, he told himself. Nothing was going to happen to Paul. He was just having some stomach problems, that's all. Why am I deceiving myself, he thought. From the way Paul was groaning, sweating, and clutching his head, this was more serious than a stomach flu. Paul eventually fell asleep, but he was even warmer and he kept twitching and whimpering in his dreams. John lay awake, listening for every erratic breath. He was not going to sleep until Paul felt better. John, I just want everything to go back to normal. I do too, John answered, thinking back to Brian and the rest of the outside world. Had he already set a search and rescue team? How long would it be until someone came to get them? Would they ever get out of here? Would Paul die? These worries swirled around in his head like a hurricane. John shook his head rapidly. Stop worrying like that. You're fucking John Lennon, and John doesn't worry about... You're fucking John Lennon, and John doesn't worry like that. That's George's job. Tense. He saw George and Ringo hovering around in the crowd of hybrids going back inside the mad house. He looked down at the sleeping Paul in his arms. He looked up over the walls into the horizon. He was so tempted to just jump off the tree and drop over the wall. That's it. The tree grew so high and thick that it peeked over the top of the walls. There was still a chance one could be seen by snipers, but it was much better than attempting to fly over it. John looked at the wall again, and back down at the scientist with the whistle. He should probably talk this over with George and Ringo, maybe make a few more adjustments to the escape plan, but that wasn't John Lennon. In one impulse, he made up his mind of what he was gonna do. Fuck you, he shrieked, and sprang off the tree. Aw, people are so nice to me in these comments though. Like, it really encouraged me. I really felt good about what I was making, even though it was highly questionable. The thing is that this fic has like very little like story structure. Where is the rising and falling action? Like, I feel like it just like continues and then suddenly it hits this like wall and then it becomes like considerably more and more dark. And then just like kind of like peters out and then it ends. Which I think is a lot of people's experience with the fanfiction they wrote when they were in middle school. So I don't think this is an outlier. If I think about it this way, if it would take me like 4 hours to like sit and like read out like this entire thing. I don't know if I want to do that. In fact, I do know I don't want to do that. I would like to rip off this wig and take off this ill-fitting suit. And I would like to not think about this fanfiction. But if you would like to know more about what happens to the Beatles and their wings, Catman and Dr. Madwell and any other kind of mess that goes on in this fanfiction, and believe me, it does get worse and it does get crazier, comment down below, and I think I'm just gonna like sit and like, you know, think about my choices, etc.